For staying with us. We continue with the conversation we've been having with Ben Kinuthia, a parent, life coach, motivational speaker, and Nasanga Aki, an advocate with the Kenya Human Rights Commission. Our discussion is on deadbeat fathers because there's a proposal by Murang'a Senator Rongo Kang'ata to have them, among other things, listed with CRB until they pay full child support. Keep your feedback coming at Grace Career KE, at KTN News KE. You can also call in live to send in, to share your contribution or whatever thoughts you have with us. Now, before I get to my panelists, let's take this story that was done by my colleague Ibrahim Karanja a few months ago, where he did a special report on fathers who've been separated from their children in spite of being willing to be actively present in their upbringing. These are men who one day woke up to find everything they lived for gone. Here now is a section of that special report.
Personally, I've attempted suicide twice. Failed, of course. I'm still here, thank God. But I attempted, and it's true. The pain is so much because of alienation. Yes. I will sleep. I remember one day in my small house, I had rented a room somewhere. And then on the wall, I had a small picture of my son when he was still small. And I would look at it and cry and talk to him. I would talk to him and tell him stuff.
Take us to that point where you have said you tried suicide twice. Didn't you think that by that time you're trying suicide, you were actually risking the life of your own son, the one you wanted to be, the one whose life you wanted to be actively involved in?
Yeah, I think at that particular time, nothing really mattered. Nothing really mattered. Actually, the pain was so bad. The pain was so bad. I can literally tell you, I could count the number of days that I actually got sleep. There was a time when I woke up in the middle of the night. I took my phone. I was still in Nakuru. I called my mother, and I told her that I don't know how I got here. I don't know how I got here. At one time, my family was full, and now I have nothing literally to live for. So my mother was trying to call me, trying to convince me. I just disconnect the phone. I just put it down, took a rope, and jumped.
The day that I left, the day that I packed and left, and actually even that day, I spoke to my wife and I told her, can we talk about these things? I could see. It's like the story of Jesus when he was, saying that if it is possible, get this cup out. I could see the pain ahead. But rationally, that was the only thing and the best thing to do at the peak of so much pain and bitterness because of exactly the things that had gone wrong in the relationship. You need to take a wiser path.
As a parent, I'd love to interact, and she was my favorite human being. So every morning I used to take her to school and pick her up in the evening. So I wanted to bond with my kids. We'd walk to school, we'd take pictures. It was fun.
I'm going through a lot. People said they see me smiling, but what is deep in my heart are very painful memories. What I was left with, the memories of my kids who are still alive.
Sections there from that special report filed by my colleague Ibrahim Karanja, broken bonds some few months ago, and those are just men, who are talking about being denied access to their children. Their children are still alive. They are alive, but they can't see them for some reason. Now, I know we ought to have a right of reply, right, from the women, from the mothers, or the wives, I would call them, of those men. But if it is true, if there are men out there who are being denied the chance to see their children, what do you think about that piece that was done by Ibrahim?
First and foremost, wonderful piece, because it's a reflection of what is truly happening in this society. Mm-hmm. Again, the beautiful thing is that when I'm not doing motivational speaking, I'm a mediator. I am a certified professional mediator, so we do lots of mediation. When my colleagues here are taking people to court, we are sitting them down and telling them, let's talk. And what I have discovered with most marital challenges is sometimes you realize that the wife to this guy only wanted to hear, I am sorry. There are disputes that have taken 5, 6, 7 years, and we've sat with a couple, and the wife starts crying and saying, all I wanted to hear is, I'm sorry. This guy never said, I'm sorry. That's why we've not agreed for these many years. And so when people solve disputes, because disputes are very expensive, even in workplaces, even in institutions, because we've had to do mediation for institutions where companies are making losses. And kumbe, it was just because there's a junior level manager who can't agree with a senior level manager, and you do mediation and they agree, and they stop at taking advertising jobs to other companies and so on and so forth. The bulk of what you see happening in families is caused by something very stupid called pride and ego. If these men and these women had involved maybe a third party and sat down and tried to negotiate, probably all the man wanted to hear is, I am sorry. Or maybe the woman just wanted to hear, I am sorry. That simple word would probably have saved them from being on the media and crying and trying to hang themselves and taking rat poison. So again, I say, Winston Churchill used to say, I will mobilize language and I will make it fight. What Irungo Kangata should have been doing and what we as a nation should have been doing is to mobilize language. If we mobilize language and use it effectively, so that we touch the hearts of the young boys and the young girls and the people who are in the society even today, it is very likely that we do not need law. In fact, Kenya is drowning in laws. We have too many laws, so many acts of parliament. The American Constitution is only 10 pages. Our Constitution, depending on which book you're coming from, is about 200 pages. Why do we need 200 pages for a nation that cannot even feed its own people? And the American, being a superpower, has got just 10 pages, and everything is contained therein. I think we need to desist from this notion that we can sort human conflict using law. Human conflict can be sorted out in better ways than using the law itself. And the law should come to where now we have absurdities of people who have chosen to completely not listen and have a conversation. But as long as we have language, as long as we are able to sit down and have a conversation, it is not correct to have men crying on national TV because they are not allowed to see their children. And for the women who are doing that, if it is true, shame on them. Because you can imagine what would have become of them if they were denied to see their own fathers, who probably did also contribute to their lives. If someone does want to be in the life of a child, it's okay for you to hate them, but the fact that you have a child together means that you need to give them a chance to participate in the life of that child if they wish to.
Masanga, of course, before being an advocate, you're a woman. What do you think of that piece? Why are some women denying, the fathers to their children that chance to see them?
It is very unfortunate, but at the same time, that is what is actually happening. Most of the times we have women being aired as victims when it comes to child maintenance and child access and custody matters. But in essence, there is a growing trend where you have men as victims. They love their children, they want to be in part of the lives of their children, but unfortunately they are denied access to the child. And it's not only because the conflict that resulted in breaking of that relationship emanated from the man. I have handled instances where women just decide they want better financial provisions, and so they go and marry other men or initiate relationships with other men. And in so doing, or during the subsistence of that relationship, they decide to block off this male parent, the biological parent of the child, from accessing the child in any way whatsoever. They tell the parents, the fathers of the child, you cannot provide for this child, you are a mere sperm donor. So why do you want to be in the life of this child? And men are really suffering. Men do cry. Because they want to be given access to their children. I have also had an instance where a man wanted to go and, had been denied access to the child despite the court ordering that he be given access. So he went to a school to be able to at least have access to the child. But the in a disturbing turn of events, the woman landed in the school together with the new husband, and they beat up the man and even threatened him, with death. It is very unfortunate because this child will grow up. Eventually, they will want to trace their roots to their biological father, but they will end up hating that biological father because they think he neglected them. But in essence, he was really fighting to be in their lives, but was not granted access to their lives. It is very unfortunate, but it is what is happening. So there should be ways of protecting such men. We shouldn't craft our laws in such a way that we are protecting a particular class of people and neglecting the others. And that is why I started by saying I am very curious as to the language of the Act. Does it speak about irresponsible fathers or irresponsible parents? We don't want to have an Act that addresses an issue as is right now, but in the future we'll have to amend it, because whenever you're making legislations, you have to be futuristic in your approach. Think of all possible scenarios.
Because again, even most of the comments that I'm getting are, concerning deadbeat mothers too, right? So you should see ahead rather. I want to stick with you, Nasanga, and I want you to take us through some of the enforcement mechanisms that are in place, because I understand they are.
Yes. As I said previously, once a court issues orders, there are ways in which the child maintenance orders have to be enforced. And the Senate, I think, just seeks to add to the enforcement mechanisms that are there, which I think already they are, the ones that are there currently are suitable enough. So the first one can be attachment of the salary of this irresponsible parent. The law provides that you can attach up to 45% of this irresponsible parent's salary. You cannot attach the whole amount because this person, you also do not want to subject them to undignified lives where they are basically working but cannot maintain themselves. Because as I said also previously, you can't uproot a tree and still expect to reap fruits. This person has to be able to continue with their lives and also be able to continually provide for this child. So you can deduct up to 45% of the salary only. It could be lower, but maximum is 45%. Yeah, because you also have to look at the needs of the child at the time. You can't have a child who is very young, is not of school-going age, but you require, say, 100,000 in child maintenance. Again, it depends on the kind of life that that child is used to. Another way of enforcing the child maintenance orders is attaching the salary and not attaching the property of the irresponsible parent, because not all people are employed and can receive a salary, but you can go and attach their property. If the worst comes to the worst, these people can be committed to civil jail, where you're committed to jail for a particular period of time. And that basically is just to put a bit of pressure. No one likes going to jail. You do not want the prison experience. So when warrants of arrest are issued and you're committed to civil jail, you will work always possible to try and pay up the child maintenance. So those are among the ways that have been that are currently in the Children's Act, and that is why I take issue with what the senator has proposed, because basically they are paralyzing the parents. You're limiting their rights actually, and our constitution provides that whenever you're limiting rights, you should consider that whether there are less restrictive ways of limiting that right. But I think what the senator is proposing is arbitrary and it's overboard, and there are less restrictive ways of enforcing these rights for the children. So his proposals, it's just way overboard. It is going to violate a couple of rights of the parent also, because it's an act in balancing rights. You're balancing the rights of the child as well as the rights of this parent. You don't want to subject someone to indignity to a point that they want to even take away their lives. So once they take away their lives, what next? denying them police clearance certificates and
Certificate of good conduct.
certificate of good conduct and cancelling their business licenses. Now, a business license is an instrument that will enable you get an income. Once it is cancelled, who is going to suffer? The child or the father?
And maybe the business employs very many people. Yeah.
And I'm also very shocked that he speaks about stopping them from traveling abroad for business. Does that mean they can travel abroad for other trips which are not business related? Again, I have not had the advantage of looking at the bill, but from the media reports, I'm just wondering, is it restricted to business only so that they can travel for other trips and other reasons?
Sure. Again, I wish he was here because we had actually agreed to have this conversation with him this morning, but then for some reason we don't have him on the show. So, Ben, there's something you told us when we took the break concerning women being their own enemies, because according to you, behind that deadbeat father is a woman somewhere.
Sasa wewe unanishtaki. Sasa wewe unanishtaki. Okay, this is the beauty. Unfortunately, I don't know why women usually fight their fellow women. Because even this bill, the way it's worded, it's supposed to punish the man. But you notice most of the time, when you have a deadbeat father, he's a deadbeat father in your house. But he's probably living with another woman and he's providing everything, even sometimes for children that he did not sire himself. I have seen interesting situations where a man leaves a person they've sired children with and goes and lives with another woman who has other 2 children from another man, and he's supporting those ones. And one of the reasons that he's not supporting his own children is because there's a woman in this house who is telling him, "Sitaki kuona mkiongea na yule." And it's not that she even has insecurity problems. If you ask, even if she doesn't even care, even if they had a relationship, she just doesn't want to see this man's money leaving the house and going to that other house because she thinks he's supporting another woman. So sometimes women cannot stand the idea that I have seen men who will take you up with your 2 children and support you and live with you and so on and so forth. But women, I find it very difficult to accept that their husband or the man they are living with can take out part of the family money and support another child who is not living in this house. So I think as women, we also need to accept that if you get into a relationship with someone who has had children or has children out there, it's time that you sit down from the word go before you even start a relationship and agree that part of the income of this house, set a percentage, don't put because salaries change and so on and so forth. But you can say, we can take 10-15% of what comes into this house so that you support those other children. Because when you agree that way, it becomes possible. And some of these men are faced with the threat of, you try send a coin there, I'm going to leave you, or I'm going to do this, and so on and so forth. So women also need to become friends of their own fellow women and to discover that there's this thing they say that usually comes back around. I don't want to use those words. And it will come back around and it will haunt you.
But
because,
you can say what goes around.
Because tomorrow morning it will be now you who is on the other side of the receiving, and this guy has found a younger, more beautiful girl, and he's left you for her. I'm handling a mediation where a married man has left a younger wife for a very old woman, like 20-25 years older, and he has a lot of money, and they got to a point they fought. I found this case at a point in time where it's so advanced that now that older woman told this young man, we shall go together according to the Kikuyu customs and pay dowry for your younger wife. Yeah, they've agreed that I will take you and we shall pay dowry for your younger wife. So let people start thinking in that direction.
Okay, I understand we have a caller online, one Chege from Muranga. Good morning, Chege. Thank you so much for calling in. What's your contribution to our discussion today?
Hello.
Yes, Chege, we can hear you. Carry on.
Hello, good morning, KNTN News.
Good morning.
Hello.
Chege, we can hear you. What's your question or contribution to our discussion today?
Yes, you're talking to Paxton Chege from Muranga.
Yes.
Yeah, and now what I want to say is, I want to support those ladies, that lady is saying
Ndio?
that Kangata is not favoring men. Kangata ana favor girls, And I want to say that this is not a good idea because unapatanga wasichana wengine they are depending to a man because akona pesa. So after wamekaa ametoa mtoto na pengine huyu mzee akona kwake, so ndio unaona huyo mtu tuseme tufanyika kitu hivi tuseme ameaga, ndio unasema anakuja anataka agawiwe mali. Na ndio amejiletea. Kwa hivyo so ningependa kusema Kangata should even favor boy child, not only girl child. Yes.
Sawa. Thank you so much. Asante sana Chege from Murang'a there. We also have one Charles from Nairobi. Good morning, Charles. Thank you so much for calling in. What's your contribution to our conversation today? Charles, if you can hear me, good morning. What's your question or what's your contribution to our discussion today?
Thank you. I'm calling from Utawala. Yeah,
yes,
I can hear
carry
you.
on. Yes.
I'm calling from Utawala, and I want to ask the lawyer one more question. We have this Child Act that says that the mother should have the kids up to 18 years. When I look at it, kids breastfeed for 2 years only. Then after 2 years, they no longer breastfeed. Why is it that law is so oppressive that the fathers cannot be able to bring up their children when they are at least 3 years and more? Because personally, I've brought up my kids from 4 years, 2 years, all the way, and they're teenagers now. I've not seen any problem as such. So I wanted to understand from the perspective of law why that law is so oppressive to fathers that kids, wherever there's a mishap in the house, they should stay with their mothers up to 18 years, then they're supposed to go back to their fathers if they wish to. Why is it like that? Please.
Sure. Thank you, Charles, for your question. Nasanga, you could respond to that.
So I think probably Charles has misread the law, because the law as is provides that children of tender years are children below 10 years. They are the ones who are at the onset required to be taken care of by the mothers. That's in terms of physical custody. They will stay with their mothers, children below 10 years. But that is what in law we say prima facie, as it appears at the onset. That is how it should be. But there are exceptional circumstances when these children will be removed from the custody of the mother, even though they are below 10 years. That is in instances where maybe the mother lives a very reckless life, maybe an adulterous life, a drunken life, and it is not in the best interest of the child that they be in that kind of environment. So in such circumstances, or even when the mother is very cruel to the child, neglects the child, in such circumstances the mother will be taken out, the child will be taken out of the custody of the child, even of the child will be taken out of the custody of the mother, even though the child is below 10 years. But once a child is above 10 years, then the courts can determine whether the child can still stay with the mother or can even go and stay with the father. Yeah.
Okay, Nasanga. And actually, there's a question I needed to ask before that caller, Charles, regarding why, for instance, Senator Kangata has decided to have this bill. Does it mean there are some gaps in the law concerning that?
At present, I do not see any gaps, because I think the enforcement mechanisms that are there currently are in order. Because you can attach the salary of a person, you can attach their property, you can commit them to civil jail, among other ways of ensuring that they provide this child support. So that enlisting in the CRB is just, it's really arbitrary. It's very, very arbitrary. So I think the enforcement mechanisms are in order.
Okay. Now, I understand we finally have the senator online, Murang'a Senator Irongo Kang'ata. And actually, after we talk to him, if you have any question for him, you can ask him, because there's so many, holes that you've been poking to this bill that he's proposing. But Senator, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us live. I'd like you to first of all take us through this proposal, and at what stage is it right now, Senator?
Thank you. One, the bill does not target fathers. That has been a misrepresentation. It targets what we call irresponsible parent, whether a man or a woman. Number two, there is an assumption in the bill that you have been taken to court. There has been a determination that you are irresponsible, and then now we are at the stage of enforcement. Now, one problem I'm finding with the lawyer analysis of the bill is an assumption that the current enforcement measures are adequate. They are not. I've seen several instances where people have evaded payment of support, either by resigning, by running away, for all sorts of things. So for me, I think we need to make it better. Now, under what circumstances do we list people before CRB? Currently, those of us who have been to the university, if you don't pay a university loan, you are told you are listed. Surely, I don't see anything wrong with adding in that list a person who is responsible to the child. I think that's a more inhuman thing to do to your small child than maybe a university student who has been unable to pay his loan. The other issue, you are also assuming everyone goes to court. Out of 100% children who neglect their children, I would imagine it's only about 15-20% who are taken to court. We have a huge number of poor parents who are unable to take their spouses to court, either because of lack of money, either because of inability to go through the legal processes, and also fear. Most of the people with this problem happen to the powerful society, like members of parliament, like senators, generally, of course. They are the ones who are able to impregnate several ladies and run away. So if you are a poor lady who can't go through court process, you can't hire a lawyer, I've come up with mechanisms where you can go to a children's officer, a determination is made. In a children's officer, you won't pay anything. And so long as the DNA has been done and you enable the children's officer to have that power to cause a DNA to be done, then from there, the mechanisms of enforcement can kick in. That way, you help poor people who can't go to court and seek justice. Get justice. For me, children's support, children welfare, supersedes everything. It supersedes all other consideration, and therefore, I think, in my own opinion, one can be taken to CRP once a determination has been done. You are not supporting your child. What is wrong with that?
Senator, if I got you correctly, you said it touches on both deadbeat fathers and deadbeat mothers, right?
Yeah. This idea that it's only fathers who are being targeted by this bill is erroneous.
But then do you see it, seeing the light of day, because it has come under heavy criticism on a senator, and of course these measures that you're talking about, CRB, I know you've expounded on that, but listing them with CRB, denying them the certificate of good conduct, do you see it, coming to pass? At what stage is it right now?
Well, we are now commencing it. I'm not so sure it will pass. I know most of the people with this problem happen to be the powerful. Those of us who are in political positions, we are the ones who have so many children out there, and we are using our power to oppress the other spouses, which to me is wrong. Because for me, people are mixing issues. Even if you don't like, let's say, that lady you brought a child with, remember there's an innocent child who needs to be supported. And by the way, I've drawn lessons from other jurisdictions, not only in Kenya. for instance, you are in America or in a developed world and you dare neglect your child, it's something that's so alarming to society that they do everything to ensure that you take responsibility. I'm fearing a whole generation of abandoned children in this country is coming up. No wonder you are seeing a huge increase of street children. These children have mothers, they have fathers. Who is going to talk on their behalf? I can tell you the reason why they were not supported is maybe there were two parents who brought that child. The first one ran away. The one who was left with the child was then decided to run away. So the child came to the street. And so for me, we need to make it easier to enforce these rights. Not everyone has the ability to go to court. It's costly, it is lengthy. We need to make that process a little bit easier. And also people to know every time you have a child, you must do every effort to bring that child.
Okay.
That's my view.
Bwana Senator, before we let you go, there's a question here from our advocate, Nasanga, if you could just pose it to him.
Senator, a quick question. Actually, two quick questions. The first one, is the Senate the right forum to present the bill in, or could the National Assembly could have been a better forum? And then the second question is around enforcement of the proposals that you are talking about. I want to get clear, is it your position that these proposals are going to be enforced without a court order?
Let me start. Any house has the power to initiate any bill that touches counties. There's an element in the bill that is touching on counties, the idea concerning trading license. To that extent, Senate can initiate it. But in any event, that's neither here or there, because ultimately, the bill will go to the National Assembly. So Senate will make a determination, the National Assembly will also make a determination. Your second question was
on whether these provisions, the proposals that you're making, whether they are going to be enforced without a court order, considering they're also touching on the fundamental rights of parents who are now turned irresponsible. Is it your position that they're going to be enforced without a court order?
No, in my own opinion, I'm proposing that the process can commence at the Children's Office. Once you make a report in a children's office, a children's officer has power to make administrative decisions. Let's say, for instance, to say, we want to determine whether the child is yours. So he can order for a DNA without necessarily going to court. Once evidence is clear that indeed it's your child, then an administrative decision can be done. Suppose this child, and if you don't, these are the measures. If you are unhappy with that, then you can revert to court. Let's say, for instance, to challenge DNA results, maybe to challenge the amount that the children's officer has observed on you. So you can continue through the court process to challenge what happened. When you look in other spheres above children's law, it happens. Take, for instance, you want to enforce an argument. You can provide for what we call arbitration. You go before an arbitrator. If you are dissatisfied, you can now make a reference back to the court. Same way it happens even in other, let's say, for instance, in sports issues, there's a tribunal on sports. Even in environmental issues, you can go and report before NEMA without first, in the first instance, going to court. Let's say a caution, if you lodge a caution, the law says you can go before a land registrar and you can now start the process of lifting that caution before a land registrar. So I'm trying to argue there are other areas where one does not in the first instance go to court, and that going to make it cheaper for the complainant. And then if you're dissatisfied with that, you always are given the legal by the law to revert to court. The idea is we need to make it a little bit easier for people to enforce these issues.
Okay.
Otherwise, currently, and for me, I think that's the reason I have with the argument, you're making a presumption that court processes are easy, they are cheaper and accessible to everyone. That's not true. Vast majority of particularly poor people in this country.
Okay.
Don't
Senator, just let me
process.
allow me to cut you short. There's one more question here from Ben Kinuthia. Just quickly pose it to him.
Senator, thank you very much for being online. First and foremost, I think I take great exception with your proposal to have business licenses cancelled for some of these people. Maybe it may not have occurred to you, and I want to make it occur to you that some of these businesses already have loans, some of them have asset financing, some of them are supporting more than one family. The cancellation of a business license for maybe a flower farm or a big hotel would make so many other families lose money because there's one man who is not supporting two children or something of that kind. So I strongly feel that you need to rethink through this and to actually have it struck out of that provision, because you cannot close down an entire business because one person is not supporting two children and that business is probably supporting 20, 30 families. Secondly, I think that as a senator, you probably have not thought about a preventive measure, because what needs to happen, as I said earlier in this show, is when we have people coming in as deadbeat fathers or deadbeat mothers, to a great extent it has something to do with how they were raised. What are you as leaders doing in the counties and in wherever you are elected to make sure that there are people who are talking to young people and teaching them? Because parenting is something that you are not taught. You grow up and you find yourself, you become a parent. It's one of the biggest institutions, yet you have not been trained for it. What are you people doing? And finally, when you say that courts are expensive and processes are expensive and so on and so forth, it goes back to the main thing. What you're treating here is a symptom of a disease. Mr. Senator, the big disease we have in this country is our economy. What you people should have been doing is to see what can we do to make sure that Kenya is not importing a mwiko. What can we do to make sure that Kenya is not importing a toothpick? What can we do to make sure that people are earning? Because what we do not have in this country is people are not economically empowered. I wish that energy was geared towards making sure that we stop importing toothpicks from China and mwikos, because that would create employment for a few, maybe another 10,000 Kenyans who would in turn be able to afford court processes. Thank you.
Your reaction, Bwana Senator?
Yeah, your first argument concerning that maybe going for trading license is too extreme, that's an arguable case. We will consider it, but the issue still remains as to why would you neglect your child? I don't understand. And surely, once you neglect your child and you have the capability, remember, that's a crucial test. I'm not saying poor, very poor people who have no ability to do anything. You can't enforce anything against them. But here you are a person with business, you're employing people. It's your blood. Surely, I don't even know why we are even really thinking about that issue. You have brought poor children in this world. You need to take up responsibility. Your next argument concerning that you should put Mugia more concerning creating employment. The state can't do everything. There's an element of parental responsibility that parents also have a duty to take care of people or of their children. Even in the most advanced countries with very good economy, almost full employment, the issue of parental responsibility is a key issue. So therefore, even if you were to provide best economy here, we create jobs, people will continue neglecting their children. And as a society, we need to tell them, this is unfair. You must say no. Remember, under Article 45, family unit is a very important institution. So therefore, we are now entering into a culture where neglecting children has reached a situation where we are now a family. It's fashionable. It is something okay. We shouldn't do anything. To me, that's the problem I'm having with that. Even if we were to create employment, some people will still go to that extent of neglecting your children. Your second point concerning maybe we need to do mass education, we need to teach people, that one I agree. In fact, that one you are correct 100%. From my discussion from this issue, I have realized three things. One, it appears we have reached a stage as a society we are now legitimizing neglecting children. It's not an issue. It's like fashionable. It's like every person must do that. And therefore, for me, I'm shocked. In fact, I'm shocked with the kind of reaction I've had several in my discussion with so many people. It's like the new normal. I gave this child, this woman a child, and this. That's unfair. I'm trying to imagine a child growing up with just one parent who is really struggling. Who is going to speak on behalf of those children? And the other spouse is busy in a restaurant taking beer, doing the same to other women. Who is going to be their voice? So for me, I agree that this issue is partially legal, but it's more sociological. And also, I've seen, even in other societies, we have several ethnic groups, like let's say America. I was so shocked to see data seems to suggest it is black people who have this problem. We are the ones who have this culture of neglecting their children. And what is the net effect ultimately? Lower life outcome for the society generally. That is why in America you find black people are the least educated, they're the least outcome. Because of that culture of neglecting their children, children need to be supported by both parents. That's what Article 53 says of the Constitution, and from a moral point of view is the correct thing to do.
We do appreciate, you joining us just to expound on this proposal and, of course, also responding to our questions here. We appreciate Bwana Senator Muranga, Senator Dairongo Kangate, joining us live by way of phone concerning that bill, the proposal that he has to, among other things, list deadbeat fathers and mothers. He has clarified, with the CRB, among other issues, just to avert these rising cases of deadbeat parents, if I would call them that. So we're completely out of time, but we need to get your closing remarks in a minute. I'll start with you, Ben. 1 minute.
Oh, thank you. And I think this is an important topic, needs to be given more prominence every other time we have an opportunity. And most importantly, we who have an opportunity right now and are raising children, let us involve the right people in their lives. Boys are going through like the rites of passage right now. Let us call upon the right people to come and talk to them. Let's talk to our girls. Let us raise responsible fathers and mothers for tomorrow, as opposed to always dealing with those that who have already become irresponsible. We can cure the malady before it happens.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Sanga?
Yeah. It's good that we have initiated this discussion, and I'm sure the country is going to get talking for the next couple of months. And by the time the bill is presented for public participation, I think there would have been ripe discussions that have gone on. But I think it is important that as we discuss all these matters, at the center, we should always focus on the child. What is in the best interest of the child? That should be our guiding principle in discussion of this bill.
Great. Thank you so much. Nasanga Aki, advocate of the Kenya Human Rights Commission, Ben Kinuthia, a parent, life coach, and a motivational speaker, and of course, Muranga Senator Dairongo Kangate there, and to all of you that also, called in live and sent in your contribution, we do appreciate. Thank you so much for joining me. We appreciate. So